Krishna, dear devotees. Welcome back to the daily readings of Srila Prabhupada's books, right here in the live studios in Hythe, Kent, southeast England, otherwise known as the Haven. At least that's what we call it now. So, the truth matters, and when we read Srila Prabhupada's books together, we get the straight, unadulterated, simple truth about who we are, what the purpose of life is, how things are being organized, what the goal is, and all these things. But there's so much disinformation being spread now around the world through these social media platforms, just as we are trying to spread the simple truth from Srila Prabhupada's books that will clear our confusion and allow us to think straight and know how to think and feel and will and act in order to keep our lives on track in happiness and go back to Godhead in this life and bring as many people as we can with us. So it's become such confusion in the world about the disinformation that there's no real facts that the different disputing parties can accept as true to begin to discuss how to solve their differences. So therefore, it's extremely important for us to keep Srila Prabhupada's books in the center as the facts that whatever we think should be done and not be done to solve problems and all of these things, management type of issues, so that we can keep this common fact in the center of our discussions. And I dedicated my life, the rest of my life, many years ago to doing this. And I appreciate so much that you have come to join me on this journey, and I pray that we'll all get there together. Hare Krishna. All right. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur had such high regard for the Caitanya-caritämrta, he gave us this poetic glorification to put it in proper perspective. He said, in due course, Mahāprabhu, devastating floods, will inundate the entire universe. If you attempt to survive by swimming in that deluge, then do not neglect to take hold of Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, and Sri Caitanya-caritämrta. Or, if you cannot hold all three, then release Bhagavad Gita. If necessary, you may also relinquish Srimad Bhagavatam. But under no circumstances release your hold on Sri Caitanya-caritämrta, for if this one book remains, then the flood can do no actual damage, because after the flood has subsided, the message of Shastra can be revived from Sri Caitanya-caritämrta alone, it being the essence of all Shastra. This is a poetic glorification. We should not go and throw our Bhagavad Gitas out the window and Bhagavatam out the window and just read CC. But this is trying to put into perspective how important the Caitanya-caritämrta is. Jai Jai Sri Caitanya Jai Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Bhagora Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Jaya Sri Caitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Jaya Sri Caitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Okay, we've reached the 7th chapter of the Antya-līlā, the meeting of Sri Chaitanya Mahāprabhu and Vallabha Bhaṭṭa. The following summary of chapter 7 is given by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur in his Amrita Pravaha Bhashya. In this chapter, Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's meeting with Vallabha Bhaṭṭa is described. There was some joking behavior between these two personalities, and finally, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu corrected Vallabha Bhaṭṭa and sympathetically accepted an invitation from him. Before this, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu saw that Vallabha Bhaṭṭa was greatly attached to Gadadhar Pandit. Therefore he acted as if displeased with Gadadhar Pandit. Later, when Vallabha Bhaṭṭa became intimately connected with the Lord advised him to take instructions from Gadadhar Pandit. Thus the Lord expressed his feelings of love for Gadadhar Pandit. Text 1. Let me offer my respectful obeisances unto the devotees of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Simply by the causeless mercy of the devotees engaged in licking honey from his lotus feet, even a fallen soul becomes eternally liberated. Text 2. All glories to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. All glories to Nityananda Prabhu. All glories to Advaita Chandra. And all glories to all the devotees of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. The next year, all the devotees of Bengal went to visit Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and as previously, the Lord met each and every one of them. Text 4. Thus, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu performed his pastimes with his devotees. Then a learned scholar named Vallabha Bhaṭṭa went to Jagannath Puri to meet the Lord. Purport. For a description of Vallabha Bhaṭṭa, one may refer to Antya-līlā, chapter 19, text 61. Text 5. When Vallabha Bhaṭṭa arrived, he offered his obeisances at the lotus feet of the Lord. Accepting him as a great devotee, the Lord embraced him. Text 6. With great respect, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu seated Vallabha Bhaṭṭa near him. Then Vallabha Bhaṭṭa very humbly began to speak. For a long time, he said, I have desired to see you, my Lord. Now Lord Jagannath has fulfilled this desire, therefore I am seeing you. Text 8. One who receives your audience is fortunate indeed, for you are the Supreme Personality of Godhead Himself. 9. Since one who remembers you is purified, why should it be astonishing that one becomes purified by seeing you? Since one who remembers you is purified, why should it be astonishing that one becomes purified by seeing you? Text 10. One can immediately purify his entire house simply by remembering exalted personalities, to say nothing of directly seeing them, touching their lotus feet, washing their feet, or offering them places to sit. Purport. This is a quotation from Srimad Bhagavatam 1:19-33. The fundamental religious system in the age of Kali is the chanting of the holy name of Krishna. Unless empowered by Krishna, one cannot propagate the Sankirtan movement. This is a very important verse. Kali Kalera Dharma, Krishna Nama Sankirtan, Krishna Shakti Vina Nahi Tara Pravartan. The fundamental religious system in this age of Kali is the chanting of the holy name of Krishna. unless empowered by Krishna, one cannot propagate the Sankirtan movement. You have spread the Sankirtan movement of Krishna consciousness. Therefore it is evident that you have been empowered by Lord Krishna. There is no question about it. Purport. Srila Madhvacharya has brought our attention to this quotation from the Narayana Samhita. Dvarpariyaya Janayar Vishnu Pancharatrais tu Kevalahi Kalau tu nama matrena Pujyate Bhagavan Harihi. In the Dwapara Yuga, one could satisfy Krishna or Vishnu only by worshipping opulently according to the Pancharatriki system. But in the age of Kali, one can satisfy and worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Hari, simply by chanting His holy name. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur explains that unless one is directly empowered by the causeless mercy of Krishna, one cannot become the spiritual master of the entire world, Jagad Guru. One cannot become an Acharya simply by mental speculation. The true Acharya presents Krishna to everyone by preaching the holy name of the Lord throughout the world. Thus the conditioned souls, purified by chanting the holy name, are liberated from the blazing fire of material existence. In this way, spiritual benefit grows increasingly full, like the waxing moon in the sky. The true Acharya, the spiritual master of the entire world, must be considered an incarnation of Krishna's mercy. Indeed, he is personally embracing Krishna. He is therefore the spiritual master of all the Varnas, Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra, and all the ashramas, Brahmacharya, Grihastha, Vanaprastha, and Sannyas. Since he is understood to be the most advanced devotee, he is called Paramahansa Thakur. Thakur is a title of honor offered to the Paramahansas. Therefore, one who acts as an Acharya, directly presenting Lord Krishna by spreading his name and fame, is also to be called Paramahansa Thakur. Text 13. You have manifested the holy name of Krishna throughout the entire world. Anyone who sees you is immediately absorbed in ecstatic love of Krishna. This is Vallabha talking. Without being especially empowered by Krishna, one cannot manifest ecstatic love of Krishna, for Krishna is the only one who gives ecstatic love. That is the verdict of all revealed scriptures. There may be many all-auspicious incarnations of the personality of Godhead, but who other than Lord Sri Krishna can bestow love of God upon the surrendered souls? Purport. This is a verse written by Bilva Mangal Thakur. It is quoted by Srila Rupa Goswami in his Laghu Bhagavatamrita 1.5.37. Text 16. Sri Chaitanya Mahāprabhu replied, My dear Vallabha Bhaṭṭa, you are a learned scholar. Kindly listen to me. I am a sannyasi of the Mayavad school. Therefore, I have no chance of knowing what Krishna Bhakti is. Text 17. Nevertheless, my mind has become purified because I have associated with Advaita Acharya, who is directly the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Text 18. He is unparalleled in his understanding of all the revealed scriptures and the devotional service of Lord Krishna. Therefore he is called Advaita Acharya. 19. He is such a great personality that by his mercy he can convert even the meat-eaters, mlechas, to the devotional service of Krishna. Who therefore can estimate the power of his Vaishnavism. Purport. It is extremely difficult to convert a mlecha or meat-eater into a devotee of Lord Krishna. Therefore, anyone who can do so is situated on the highest level of Vaishnavism. 20. Lord Nityananda Prabhu, the Avadhuta, is also directly the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is always intoxicated with the madness of ecstatic love. Indeed, he is an ocean of love of Krishna. 21. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya perfectly knows the 6 philosophical theses. He is therefore the spiritual master of the entire world in teaching the 6 paths of philosophy. He is the best of devotees. 22. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya has shown me the limit of devotional service. Only by his mercy have I understood that devotional service to Krishna is the essence of all mystic yoga. 23. Srila Ramananda Roy is the ultimate knower of the transcendental mellows of Lord Krishna's devotional service. He has instructed me that Lord Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Text 24. Through the mercy of Ramananda Roy, I have understood that ecstatic love for Krishna is the highest goal of life, and that spontaneous love of Krishna is the highest perfection. Purport. Purushartha, the goal of life, generally refers to religion, economic development, satisfaction of the senses, and finally, liberation. However, above these 4 kinds of Purusharthas, love of Godhead stands supreme. It is called Parama Purushartha, the supreme goal of life, or Purushartha Shiromani, the most exalted of all Purusharthas. Lord Krishna is worshipped by regulative devotional service, but the highest perfection of devotional service is spontaneous love of Godhead. Text 25. The servant, friend, superior, and conjugal lover are the shelters of the transcendental mellows called Dasya, Sakya, Vatsalya, and Sringara. Text 26. There are 2 kinds of emotion, bhava. Emotion with an understanding of the Lord's full opulences is called Aishwarya Jnana Yukta, and pure, uncontaminated emotion is called Kevala. One cannot achieve shelter at the lotus feet of Krishna, the son of Maharaj Nanda, simply by knowing his opulences. Purport. Vide Antya-līlā, chapter 19, text 192. Set 27. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, the son of Mother Yashoda, is accessible to those devotees engaged in spontaneous loving service, but he is not as easily accessible to mental speculators, to those striving for self-realization by severe austerities and penances, or to those who consider the body the same as the self. Purport. This verse is from Srimad Bhagavatam 10.9.21. Text 28. The word Atma Bhuta means personal associates. Through the understanding of the Lord's opulence, the goddess of fortune could not receive the shelter of Krishna, the son of Nanda Maharaj. Purport. Lakshmi, the goddess of fortune, has complete knowledge of Krishna's opulences, but she could not achieve the association of Krishna by dint of such knowledge. The devotees in Vrindavan, however, actually enjoy the association of Krishna. Text 29. When Lord Sri Krishna was dancing with the gopis in the Rasa-līlā, the gopis were embraced around the neck by the Lord's arms. This transcendental favor was never bestowed upon the goddess of fortune or the other consorts in the spiritual world, nor was such a thing ever imagined by the most beautiful girls in the heavenly planets, girls whose bodily luster and aroma resemble the beauty and fragrance of lotus flowers. And what to speak of worldly women who may be very, very beautiful according to material estimation. Purport. This is a verse from Srimad Bhagavatam 10:47-60, text 30. In pure Krishna consciousness, a friend mounts the shoulder of Krishna, and Mother Yashoda binds the Lord. Purport. Shuddha Bhava, pure Krishna consciousness, is not dependent on the understanding of the Lord's opulences. Without such knowledge, the devotee in Shuddha Bhava is inclined to love Krishna as a friend or son. Text 31. In pure Krishna consciousness, without knowledge of the Lord's opulences, a devotee considers Krishna his friend or son. Therefore, this devotional attitude is praised even by Shukadeva Goswami and Vyasadeva, the supreme authority. Text 32. Neither those who are engaged in self-realization, appreciating the Brahman effulgence of the Lord, nor those engaged in devotional service while accepting the Supreme Personality of Godhead as Master, nor those who are under the clutches of Maya, thinking the Lord an ordinary person, can understand that certain exalted personalities, after accumulating volumes of pious activities, are now playing with the Lord in friendship as cowherd boys. Purport. This verse is from Srimad Bhagavatam 10:12-11, text 33. When Mother Yashoda saw all the universes within Krishna's mouth, she was astonished for the time being. The Lord is worshipped like Indra and other demigods by the followers of the three Vedas, who offer him sacrifices. He is worshipped as impersonal Brahman by saintly persons who understand his greatness through studying the Upanishads, as the Purusha by great philosophers who analytically study the universe, as the all-pervading Supersoul by great yogis, and as the Supreme Personality of Godhead by devotees. Nevertheless, Mother Yashoda considered the Lord her own son. Purport. This verse is from Srimad Bhagavatam 10:8-45. Text 34. O Brahmana, what pious activities did Nanda Maharaj perform to receive the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna as his son? And what pious activities did Mother Yashoda perform that made the Absolute Supreme Personality of Godhead call her mother and suck her breasts? Purport. This verse is from Srimad Bhagavatam 10:8-46. 35. Even if a pure devotee sees the opulence of Krishna, he does not accept it. Therefore, pure consciousness is more exalted than consciousness of the Lord's opulence. 36. Ramananda Roy is extremely aware of transcendental mellows. He is incessantly absorbed in the happiness of ecstatic love of Krishna. It is He who taught me all this. Text 37. It is impossible to describe the influence and knowledge of Ramananda Roy, for only by his mercy have I understood the unalloyed love of the residents of Vrindavan. 38. The transcendental mellows of ecstatic love are personified by Swarup Damodar. By his association, I have understood Vrindavan's transcendental mellow of conjugal love. The unalloyed love of the gopis and Srimati Radharani is without any trace of material lust. The criterion of such transcendental love is that its only purpose is to satisfy Krishna. Text 40. O dearly beloved, your lotus feet are so soft that we place them gently on our breasts, fearing that your feet will be hurt. Our lives rest only in you. Our minds, therefore, are filled with anxiety that your tender feet might be wounded by pebbles as you roam about on the forest path. Purport. This verse is spoken by the gopis in Srimad Bhagavatam 10:31-19. 41. Obsessed with pure love, without knowledge of opulences, the gopis sometimes chastise Krishna. That is a symptom of pure ecstatic love. 42. O dear Krishna, we gopis have neglected the order of our husbands, sons, family, brothers, and friends, and have left their company to come to you. You know everything about our desires. We have come only because we are attracted by the supreme music of your flute. But you are a great cheater, for who else would give up the company of young girls like us in the dead of night? Purport. This verse is from Srimad Bhagavatam 10:31-16. Text 43. The conjugal love of the gopis is the most exalted devotional service, surpassing all other methods of bhakti. Therefore, Lord Krishna is obligated to say, my dear gopis, I cannot repay you. Indeed, I am always indebted to you. Text 44. Naparda ye ham nirabadya sangyujam swasadu krityam vibudas yushapivaha yan mahabajan durja yageha shrinkala sangvrishya tadva pratiyatu sadhuna. O gopis, I am not able to repay my debt for your spotless service, even within a lifetime of Brahma. Your connection with me is beyond reproach. You have worshipped me, cutting off all domestic ties which are difficult to break. Therefore, please let your own glorious deeds be your compensation. Purport. This is a quotation from Srimad Bhagavatam 10:32-22. Completely distinct from love of Krishna in opulence, pure love of Krishna is on the highest level. On the surface of the world, there is no devotee greater than Uddhava. Text 46. Uddhava desires to take on his head the dust of the gopis' lotus feet. I have learned about all these transcendental loving affairs of Lord Krishna from Swarup Damodar. Text 47. The gopis of Vrindavan have given up the association of their husbands, sons, and other family members who were very difficult to give up, and they have forsaken the path of chastity to take shelter of the lotus feet of Mukunda, Krishna, which one should search for by Vedic knowledge. Oh, let me be fortunate enough to become one of the bushes, creepers, or herbs in Vrindavan, for the gopis trample them and bless them with the dust of their lotus feet. Purport. This verse from Srimad Bhagavatam 10:47-61 was spoken by Uddhava. When Uddhava was sent by Krishna to see the condition of the gopis in Vrindavan, he stayed there for a few months in their association and always talked with them about Krishna. Although this greatly pleased the gopis and other residents of Brajabhumi, Vrindavan, Uddhava saw that the gopis were severely afflicted by their separation from Krishna. Their hearts were so disturbed that their minds were sometimes deranged. Observing the unalloyed devotion of love of the gopis for Krishna, observing the unalloyed devotion and love of the gopis for Krishna, Uddhava desired to become a creeper, a blade of grass, or an herb in Vrindavan, so that sometimes the devotees would trample him and he would receive the dust of their lotus feet on his head. 48. Haridas Thakur, the teacher of the holy name, is the most exalted of all pure devotees. Every day he chants 300,000 holy names of the Lord. I have learned about the glories of the Lord's holy name from Haridas Thakur, and by his mercy I have understood these glories. 50 to 52. Acharya Ratna, Acharya Nidhi, Gadadhar, Pandit, Jagadananda, Damodar, Shankar, Vakreshwar, Kashishwar, Mukunda, Vasudev, Murari, and many other devotees have descended in Bengal to preach to everyone the glories of the holy name of Krishna and the value of love for him. I have learned from them the meaning of devotional service to Krishna. Mind you, this is Lord Chaitanya speaking, all these verses. Knowing that Vallabha Bhatta's heart was full of pride, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu spoke these words, hinting at how one can learn about devotional service. Purport. Vallabha Bhatta was greatly proud of his knowledge in devotional service. Excuse me. Vallabha Bhatta was greatly proud of his knowledge in devotional service, and therefore he wanted to speak about Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu without understanding the Lord's position. The Lord therefore hinted in many ways that if Vallabha Bhatta wanted to know what devotional service actually is, he would have to learn from all the devotees he mentioned, beginning with Advaita Acharya, Lord Nityananda, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, and Ramananda Roy. As Swarup Damodara said, if one wants to learn the meaning of Srimad Bhagavatam, one must take lessons from a realized soul. One should not proudly think that one can understand the transcendental loving service of the Lord simply by reading books. One must become a servant of a Vaishnava. As Narottam Das Thakur has confirmed, Chadiya Vaishnava Seva Nishtara Peye Chekeba. One cannot be in a transcendental position unless one very faithfully serves a pure Vaishnava. One must accept a Vaishnava Guru, Adau Guru Arshayam, and then by questions and answers, one should gradually learn what pure devotional service to Krishna is. This is called the Parampara system. Text 54. Vallabha Bhaṭṭa was thinking, I am a great Vaishnava, having learned all the conclusions of Vaishnava philosophy. I can understand the meaning of Srimad Bhagavatam and explain it very well. Text 55. Such pride has existed for a long time within the mind of Vallabha Bhaṭṭa, but as he heard the preaching of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, his pride was cut down. 56. When Vallabha Bhaṭṭa heard from the mouth of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu about the pure Vaishnavism of all these devotees, he immediately desired to see them. 57. Vallabha Bhaṭṭa said, where do all these devotees live, and how can I see them? Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu replied, although some of them live in Bengal and some in other states, they have all come here to see the Ratha Yatra festival. 59. At present, they are all living here. Their residences are in various quarters. Here, you will get the audience of them all. Text 60. Thereafter, with great submission and humility, Vallabha Bhaṭṭa invited Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu to dine at his home. The next day, when all the Vaishnavas came to the abode of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, the Lord introduced Vallabha Bhaṭṭa to them all. He, Vallabha Bhaṭṭa, was surprised to see the brilliance of their faces. Indeed, among them, Vallabha Bhaṭṭa seemed just like a glowworm. Then Vallabha Bhaṭṭa brought in a great quantity of Lord Jagannath's Mahaprasadam and sumptuously fed Lord Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu and his associates. All the sannyasi associates of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, headed by Paramananda Puri, sat on one side and thus partook of the prasadam. Text 65. Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu sat in the midst of the devotees. Advaita Acharya and Lord Nityananda each sat on one side of the Lord. The other devotees sat in front of the Lord and behind him. Text 66. The devotees from Bengal, whom I am unable to count, all sat down in lines in the courtyard. 67. When Vallabha Bhaṭṭa saw all the devotees of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, he was greatly surprised, and in devotion he offered his obeisances at the lotus feet of each and every one of them. Text 68. Surup Damodar, Jagadananda, Kashishwara and Shankar, along with Raghava and Damodar Pandit, took charge of distributing the prasadam. 69. Vallabha Bhaṭṭa had brought a large quantity of Mahaprasadam offered to Lord Jagannath. Thus all the sannyasis sat down to eat with Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. Hare Krishna. Haribo, Haribo. Accepting the prasadam, all the Vaishnavas chanted the holy names, Hari, Hari. The rising vibration of the holy name of Hari filled the entire universe. 71. When all the Vaishnavas had finished eating, Vallabha Bhaṭṭa brought a large quantity of garlands, sandalwood pulp, spices, and betel. He worshipped the devotees very respectfully and became extremely happy. Text 72. On the day of the car festival, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu began the congregational chanting. As he had done previously, he divided all the devotees into 7 groups. Okay, I'm going to stop here tonight. Hare Krishna. All glories to this Sapala Ekadashi. I don't know if it's Ekadashi in wherever you are out there in cyberspace, but today is Sabala Ekadashi, and I dutifully chanted my 64 rounds that I do on every Ekadashi, and so I'm going to stop the reading tonight and give my voice a little break. I will start again tomorrow on text 72. Hare Krishna, Hari Bol. All glories to Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and all the devotees of Lord Chaitanya. Amazing. Okay, let's have some reflections and some comments and discussions to churn the ocean of nectar that is the Sri Caitanya-caritämrta. Haribol.
There's a question from Vallabha.
Hey Vallabha, you're first up out of the gate. Haribol.
He says, Hare Krishna, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Since I dare not try to understand the Rasa-līlā, can you speak something about the soft feet of the Lord, Krishna or Chaitanya? It is helpful to consider during japa.
Well, I'm not qualified to speak about the softness of the Lord. But I can tell you that by the transcendental arrangement of Srila Prabhupada in 1977, not long before he left this world, I went to Vrindavan to be with him and to help Tamal Krishna Maharaj, who was taking care of him, along with a lot of other of his intimate disciples and devotees. And by Krishna's arrangement, when I first entered into the room after traveling for 30 hours, I think, or more, maybe more, praying all the way for some special, for any kind of personal service, because I'd never had any personal service directly to Prabhupada. Of course, our service to Prabhupada was distributing Prabhupada's books and managing the distributing of the books in the temples. So that was not different from personal service, but still I had this desire in my heart. So I chanted the whole way prayers and my japa. When I entered the room finally, after I got to Vrindavan, the room was dark because Prabhupada's eyes were very sensitive to the light at the time, and so it was early in the morning, but the lights were dimmed, so I couldn't see when I first came in the room. And then when I did, my eyes adjusted, and there was enough light for me to see Prabhupada, I was devastated completely. And in the room was Bhakti Churu Maharaj, Hare Krishna, who was doing something with the medicine at the top of the bed, at the head of the bed, and Giriraj Maharaj, who was massaging Srila Prabhupada's lotus feet. And Tamal Krishna Maharaj was in the next room, and I didn't realize he was in the next room. I should have, but I didn't. And I was only in the room for maybe a minute or 2 minutes, and then I heard Tamal Krishna Maharaj's voice, Bhakti Churu, and so then Bhakti Churu Maharaj left the room, and that left just me and Giriraj Maharaj in the room. So then I was still gathering my wits and trying to digest what I was seeing, Srila Prabhupada in that condition. It was very difficult to see, very difficult. And then, within 2 minutes, or maybe less, I heard Giriraj, Tamal Krishna Maharaj calling for Giriraj. So he looked at me, and he went like this, with his finger like this. And I looked behind me because I thought he was talking to someone else. Somebody came in without me noticing. But he said, no, you please come here. And he said, you have to massage Prabhupada's lotus feet while I go. So I paid my obeisances and I massaged Prabhupada's lotus feet for some time with just me and him in the room. And I can say without a shadow of a doubt that his lotus feet were the softest things that I have ever touched. Softer than the petal of a rose or whatever thing you can imagine that's the softest thing you can imagine. His feet were softer than that, and they were fragrant. They were so fragrant. And then anyway, afterwards they came back in and I just, rubbed my whole body with my hands, trying to get the dust of Prabhupada's lotus feet on my body and become eligible to be a devotee. So, and Krishna's lotus feet are the softest things. We heard the verse that the gopis used to lament when he was in the forest because he went without shoes. And they used to cry thinking that the pebbles and the thorns would prick his soft lotus feet. And when they were having transcendental pastimes, and they would say, they would think that Krishna's lotus feet are so soft, we might harm them by placing them on our breasts, which are very soft. So these things are not, as we're hearing, these things are not to be dwelled upon unless we are qualified. If we dwell upon these things, but that doesn't mean that we shouldn't hear them and we shouldn't appreciate them. We just shouldn't dwell on them prematurely, because we'll get either agitated or we won't be able to do it at all, and then we'll get discouraged. So I think that the lotus feet of the spiritual master should be the first things to occupy our minds and our hearts when it comes to thinking about the lotus feet of Krishna. Actually, when you think about the lotus feet of Krishna or the lotus feet of the spiritual master or the lotus feet of the Vaishnavas, you're actually thinking about their whole being. It's a poetic expression of their whole being, and therefore the service to the lotus feet of the spiritual master and the Vaishnavas and Krishna are the life and soul of the devotee. And this is what Lord Chaitanya was trying to tell Vallabha, because Vallabha was full of pride, and it will unfold as this pastime unfolds tomorrow and the next day and the next day. It will unfold just how proud he actually was, even though he was a great soul, and even though he had this devotion for Lord Chaitanya as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But he was proud, and therefore he was attached to the opulences of pride and position, and therefore he could not conceive. So we have to serve, we have to chant, purify our hearts, to be eligible to appreciate these topics properly. So don't dwell there, but hear about them in the books, and try to apply the principles that are described in the Gita and the Bhagavatam and Caitanya-caritämrta into our, as much as we can, into our thinking and feeling and living and willing and acting. And when we become qualified, then Krishna will reveal himself. You can't get it by some austerity or by great learning or even by hearing a lot. Nayamatma prabhajalena labhya. Only who Krishna chooses can we understand these things. So we become servant of the servant of the servant of the servant, and by that way we learn and become eligible to dwell upon those things. Until then, the proper thing to do is to meditate on the sound of the holy name. Our minds are by nature chanchalam manasa, Krishna. Arjuna said, the mind is too flickering, I can't meditate like that. So practice bringing the mind back to the sound of the holy name. In other words, when we chant the holy name, our mind should be chanting the holy name also. We shouldn't be thinking of other things. But the mind is very strong and very flickering, and therefore it will always go somewhere else, want to go somewhere else. So we have to keep bringing it back. Yato yato nishchalate manas chanchalamustaram. Due to the nature of the mind being flickering, you have to drag it back constantly and practice. And in this way, you will get the attention of the Lord, who's in the heart watching. And when He chooses you, then you can understand everything. And then these things will come into the heart while you're chanting naturally. You won't have to try to meditate on them. That was Prabhupada's basic instruction on how to chant Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. I got a little carried away, but Vallabha is so sincere. His question brought it out of me.
There's a question related to this topic from Gopal Roy.
Gopal Roy, Hari Bol. Nice to have you aboard. Hare Krishna.
He says, Dear Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna.
Your daily readings have been keeping me energized and enlivened.
Well, that makes me really happy because I heard that you won the marathon. And not only that, I think you've won it more times than anybody in the history of the UK Yatra. So I offer my obeisances at the dust of your feet, at the dust of your book bag, or whatever it is that we use nowadays. Hare Krishna. So I didn't mean to interrupt. Go ahead.
Says, tomorrow the devotees here in Wales are having a day where we all chant 64 rounds. It will be a first time for some of the newer devotees chanting so many rounds. Do you have any advice, or could you please share any experiences for inspiration? Thank you again, your servant Gopal Roy Das.
I don't have anything. I don't know anything and I don't have anything. But I like to chant Hare Krishna. So I chant 64 rounds every Ekadashi, and I've been doing it for many, many years. But it's not easy because, there's so many things that go on, so many things are happening. You have to cordon off time and just decide that you're going to chant your rounds during this time, and you're not going to do anything else. You have that time. And then you have to just do it. And when the mind goes here and there, you have to bring it back, like I said before. There's no shortcut, there's no way to become experienced. First of all, there's no substitute for experience. for maturity and experience. And there's no way to become mature and experienced except through experience over time. So we have to make up our mind that this is what I'm going to do. And when the mind tells us other things, you have to reject the mind and go back to the chanting and keep doing that until you fulfill your 64 rounds. If you chant 7 rounds a minute, which most devotees average about 7 rounds a minute, 7 rounds a minute, so 108 times 7 is 756, isn't it? 108 times 7, 756. So then 756 divided by the number of minutes in an hour. How many minutes in an hour? 60 times 60, right? How many minutes in an hour? 60 minutes in an hour. So divide well, you'd have to divide it, make it into minutes. Oh. I'm getting old and I can't do this very easily. I used to do this really easily. In 1 hour, in 1 minute, wait. Seven minutes. It should take how long to chant 1 hour?
To chant 7 rounds in 1 hour?
No, Anyway, it's about 27,000 names in 16 rounds, approximately. Not exactly, but approximately. So to chant 64 rounds is 4 times 16. So 4 times 27,000. Anyway, you have to be prepared to sit down for a number of hours, to chant 64 rounds. So you have to have enough time to do that without doing anything else. That's the best way to do it. Otherwise you will stop and start, and it'll take a lot longer, and you won't get the full benefit. Anyway, I was a little digressing and rambling a little bit, but my point is that you have to be determined to do this no matter what. And remember that namaparada yukta namameva aham agam means that even if you're not an offenseless chanter, the way to become an offenseless chanter is to chant. Because the holy name is the only thing that is more powerful enough to purify the offenses. Therefore, the Prabhupada Purana says that the holy name of the Lord is meant for offenders. Because if you chant, and keep chanting, and chant a lot for a long time, you will cross over the ocean of your own offenses. But the first point is become determined and decide, this is what I'm going to do, and whatever my mind and body tells me, this is what I'm going to do. Hare Krishna. Then you'll realize who you are in relationship to Haridas Thakur, who chanted 192 rounds every day. 3 times that. Oh, anyway. Hare Krishna.
Next is something
Sorry for all the confusing arithmetic. I didn't get it completely right, but the principle is there.
Radhesham did the math and he wrote everything out.
Oh, good.
He says 16 rounds, the vow equals 16 times 728 equals 27,648 names.
Right.
2 to 3 hours.
Yes.
32 rounds equals 55,296 names. 4 to 6 hours. 64 rounds equals 110,592 names. 8 to 12 hours.
There you go. That's chanting 7 minutes around.
Now next is something from Bhaṭṭa Ben.
Yes, Bhaṭṭa Ben, Haribol.
He says, Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. Thanks for today's reading. I loved Prabhupada's description of parampara. Quote, by questions and answers one should gradually learn what pure devotional service to Krishna is. Unquote. I like particularly how Prabhupada mentions that this learning process is gradual. By hearing CC with you so much, more has been gradually revealed than when I read it by myself the first time. Thanks for your answers and glowing insights. Questions and answers seem to be the key to learning about devotional service. What's the secret to asking the right questions?
The Bhagavatam, the Gita, the Puranas, all the scriptures, even the Vedas, they're all a series of questions and answers, aren't they? So you learn how to inquire by hearing how the great souls inquire. And you learn how to receive the answers by learning how the great soul receives the answers. In other words, you have to follow in the footsteps of the great souls. We can't imitate them, but we can try to follow in the footsteps. Just like Srila Prabhupada said, Haridas Thakur could chant 192 rounds a day, every day. Don't try to do that. Only Haridas Thakur can do that, actually. But following his footsteps means we've been given 16 rounds to chant every day. And even though we may have special days where we chant more rounds, but the vow is every day to chant 16 rounds, at least. We can always chant more, but at the minimum. So that's how we follow in the footsteps of Haridas Thakur. You follow the principles that Prabhupada gave us as the founder Acharya of our movement, who was qualified to make that decision to give us that amount of rounds to chant every day. That is how we make advancement. By doing that without deviation every day for the rest of our life. And if you do that and follow the 4 regulative principles strictly without deviating for the rest of your life, you will go back to Godhead in this life. Why? Because Prabhupada promised that we would. And he's so dear to Krishna. Whenever a person, a devotee, who is that dear to Krishna makes a promise, Krishna feels obliged to keep the promise for him. That's the secret of making advancement in devotional life on all levels. Yasya prasada bhagavat prasado yasya prasada nagati gatopi By the mercy of Krishna, you get a spiritual master. By the mercy of the spiritual master, you get Krishna. Hare Krishna. And when you follow the orders of the spiritual master strictly, then Krishna takes you seriously.
Next is something from Rati Manjari.
Hare Krishna, Rati. Hare Bo.
She says, Dear Guru Maharaj, please accept my respectful obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you for relating that intimate pastime. Today is the disappearance day of your god-sister, Mother Yamuna. Would you like to share some of your memories and observations about her?
I never dealt with Yamuna. I never spent any time with Yamuna because we were always in different places. I can't give you details like that. You have to read the book that was written about her. All the details are there. Don't mean to disappoint you, but I can't say something that I don't have any experience of. By the time I joined in 1972, she was already in London. But I can highly recommend that you read Shyamatsundar's book, Chasing, what's the name of the book? Chasing Rhinos with the Swami. And you get really bird's eye view of her, who she was and everything. Hare Krishna, Hare Bo.
She says, did you hear anything about her?
Yeah, I heard so many things about her. She loved to cook for Srila Prabhupada. And she learned to cook because she was pure in her love for Prabhupada. When she went to India, she just researched and researched and researched and researched until she was really expert. She pleased Prabhupada like that. And her voice was very haunting. And therefore, when they made that record with George Harrison, which is now the Govinda prayer, so that play every time the deities are, the curtains open to see the deities in the morning for greeting of the deities. We hear Yamuna's voice, and you can hear the enriched devotion in her voice, very obvious and clear.
She says, yes, I read the 2 books about Yamuna and also 1 book of Shyamsundar.
Yes, therefore you know more than I do. So you're pushing me to say something that you know more about. It's funny.
She says they were wonderful books.
Yeah, sure. She's a wonderful devotee. Giridhari Maharaj once went to the Bhaktivedanta hospital in Bombay, and Yamuna was there, and she was very ill. This was not just before she left, but it was within, I don't remember how many years, and he told me that he went into her presence, in the hospital room, and she chanted with her, and he felt himself transported by the sound of her chanting. Hare Krishna.
Rati says, I just wanted to hear it from you, Guru Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
And then something from Vilas Manjari.
Haribol, Vilas, Hare Krishna.
She says, Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Amongst all the many dear devotees of Lord Chaitanya, Srila Rupa Goswami is considered the head of our sampradaya. Is that correct?
Yes.
Could you discuss this a little? Thank you.
Well, as this is Krishna. This is Lord Chaitanya's pastime. Remember when he met? We heard already how he met Rupa and Sanatan. And the first time he met them, he was very impressed with them, and therefore he gave them his mercy. And later on, when he instructed them, spent 10 days with Rupa Goswami and 2 full months with Sanatana Goswami, he gave them his full mercy. And therefore, they're considered to be, our acharyas by the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahāprabhu. We just heard not long ago in the first chapter, actually, the Antya-līlā, how when Rupa Goswami came to see Lord Chaitanya, he was writing dramas about Krishna. Well, he was writing one drama, and then on his way to Jagannath Puri, he had a dream. He was in Satyabhamapur, and he had a dream, and Satyabhama came to him and said, write a drama about me. It will become very nice, separate drama. So then he understood that he was going to have to maybe divide his drama into two. And then when he got to Jagannath Puri, then Lord Chaitanya, out of the blue, he said, Krishna never takes a step out of Vrindavan, never take him out of Vrindavan. So then he understood that he needed to. So then Lord Chaitanya used to bring Ramananda Roy and Swarup Damodar and his other most intimate associates, Lord Nityananda, when he was there, they would go and they would hear and analyze and examine the verses of Rupa Goswami, and everyone was struck with wonder at his writing, his poetry, his expression, poetic expressions of the glories of the holy name and Lord Chaitanya and devotional service, pure devotional service. So, but we should also know that Lord Chaitanya mentioned, when he was glorifying Rupa Goswami at that time, he mentioned Sanatana Goswami. And so, yes, we're called Rupanugas, but that isn't that, we're followers of Rupa Goswami, but it doesn't mean that we're not followers of Sanatana Goswami. It's poetic. He sent those two to Vrindavan to write the books that would become the basis of our devotional lives. And therefore they became, Rupa Goswami in particular, became our acharya. But we shouldn't think materially about this, because Ramananda Roy, Swarup Damodar, and all the other intimate associates of Lord Chaitanya and eternal associates, we shouldn't think of them as higher and lower. But Rupa Goswami had a particular, and Sanatana Goswami, they had particular roles to play. You know, like Haridas Thakur, he gave Haridas Thakur the empowerment to chant the holy name. And then he, as he told Vallabha Bhaṭṭa, you know, I learned how to chant Hare Krishna and learned all about the holy name from Haridas Thakur. So he gave Rupa Goswami this service of writing the books that would become the basis of the science of Krishna consciousness that we learn, and Sanatana Goswami also. Therefore, they stand out among all the devotees, and therefore, what's the word? When Lord Chaitanya and Ramananda Roy and Swarup Damodar, that's Radharani, you know, Lord Chaitanya is Krishna in the mood of Radharani, and Ramananda Roy is considered to be Vishaka, and Swarup Damodar is considered to be Lalita in Krishna's pastimes. So there they are, hearing from Rupa Goswami, who's Rupa Manjari. You know, and Rupa Manjari is just a small girl in Krishna-līlā. And the others are the Sakis, they're Krishna's intimate girlfriends. And so there they are, you know, more or less being controlled and asking submissively from Rupa Goswami about the science of Krishna consciousness, and being overwhelmed. They said, this is not a book, it's a stream of nectar. How did you do this? And then Swarup Damodar, Lord Chaitanya said, how could you understand my mind? And Swarup Damodar said, he has received your full mercy. So, but we shouldn't think that the other devotees haven't received his full mercy either. That's the point I'm trying to make. I hope I'm adding some light to this subject, you know. Because Rupa Goswami and Sanatana were given that specific duty to go to Vrindavan and to write down the Lord Chaitanya's teachings, he taught everything. And then he had other devotees repeat the teachings that he was giving. And but these two, he gave the specific duty to go there and reawaken Krishna consciousness in Vrindavan and write the books that will become the basis for his movement to spread all over the world. Therefore, we're called Rupanugas. But we shouldn't focus in on that and forget Sanatana Goswami or, you know, the other eternal associates of Lord Chaitanya that were there. I hope I'm explaining what I'm trying to say. Is it clear? Pretty clear. That was his role. Rupa Goswami, Lord Chaitanya gave him that role. That's why we're called Rupanugas. Hare Krishna.
Vilas Manjari says, thank you. That's much clearer to me.
Okay. It's almost 8:40. So, with the permission of all the Vaishnavas, I'll stop here. Thank you very much for these lovely questions. My gosh. Wonderful questions, way over my head. I don't know how to answer these questions, but by your mercy, you are empowering me. So I hope I said something that would add something. Shri Caitanya-caritämrta ki jai, Samaveda Bhaktivinoda ki jai, Gaur Premanandi Hari Hari Bol. Thank you very much. We'll see you tomorrow night, same place, same time, same topic, pure nectar. Hare Krishna.